Big questions, small talks.
Woo!
How are you, Devon?
I'm doing so good.
Yeah, me too.
I'm really feeling the vibes this week.
You look so cute, by the way.
Thank you. I was feeling just like kind of like, I don't know, bringing a little like
flirty and fun.
Yeah, a little sass to today's episode.
Yeah, we look like we're going to different to different functions, but that's okay.
It's the two vibes.
It's all right. There's multi-cameras, so there's something for every flavor. Welcome everyone to this week's episode.
Literally the perfect flavor.
We are the perfect
flavor. If we were
flavor.
like a soft serve, you know, it'd be like the two flavors.
Welcome everybody to this week's episode with one of my favorite questions so far asked. In fact, I wanted to do this ASAP because I was like, I fucking love this.
You were very fired up with this question.
I was so fired up.
I must just add, I really love reading everyone's questions though.
Yes.
Because some are so goofy.
Some we can't answer and some we just can't answer and will never answer.
Yes.
I don't think. But
even on my wildest days, I wouldn't answer.
No. But who knows? Maybe. If we get an Oscars or an Emmy, then we'll answer those on stage. This week's question is submitted by my media teacher from when I was 17. And it is, what advice would you give to your 20-year-old self? Now that I'm 30, you're 45.
Oh my God, please don't age me. But I am the older friend.
Yes. I love this because this is something I think about a lot. And, the advice you'd give to your 20-year-old self, 10 years ago or so, is probably the same advice that you'd give to yourself now in 10 years.
Yeah.
So I like to think about it a lot and, just kind of check myself. Am I living by those things that I would have told myself to do? Because in 10 years, those things are still probably going to be the same.
Yeah. So some of my favorite content I feel like I am just like very scroll stoppy with right now is like all of these kind of like articles around like, if I'm 40 years old, if you're 30, this is what you need to know.
Mm-hmm.
Or like looking back on my 20s, I am now 70. This is what I learned.
Yes.
And there's always a lot of like commonalities between them. And I've really been reading them lately or like putting them in my saved or like journaling them because I do think life is so short and it goes by so fast. And something my mom has always told my brother and I is like, what's the expression? It's like youth is wasted on the young. And when you're like, I'm 33 and sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, like I feel so old. And then my mom's like, you have your entire life ahead of you.
For sure. And there is no faster way to make me cry than a 9-year-old on TikTok being like, what I would tell to my 30-year-old self.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, this is so beautiful.
Cute.
But nevertheless, let's start.
Okay.
I think you should take it away, Dev. What is the first piece of advice you'd give to young, hungry, hot Devon Belter at 20?
I would say just stop being so hard on yourself. I have always been very, very, very hard on myself and just very competitive with myself just as a person. And ever since I was little, like I think I've talked about this before, but I always saw myself as an adult. So I had so much pressure on myself, like especially in school. Like I would just be like, if I don't get good grades, this will happen. Like everything I felt like was very like dramatized in my head with worry. And I am such a perfectionist for myself that just the amount of pressure that I put on myself at that young age, I really wish that I did not do that.
Right.
So if I could go back in time in the time machine, I would be like, just relax a little bit. It's not so serious. Have fun. Don't overthink every single decision you make. It doesn't have this immense ripple effect that will like affect your whole life.
Yeah, no, that's true. I think I was always quite easy on myself. I'd have probably benefited from a bit more pressure, to be honest. That's great advice, though, for those that need it. That's good. I think my first piece of advice would be to myself. Also, can I just say, I hate that TikTok trend where it's like, I met myself for coffee today.
I hate
my
that
God.
trend. What about how it's like, I was hungover, still hungover. I'm like, fuck all the way off. It's like,
It's so
like,
cringy.
I got a whole milk latte, the old me drinking soy. It's like,
It's
oh
so
my
cringy.
gosh, please.
It's horrible.
Cringe,
and I love TikTok
cringe,
trends,
cringe,
but I don't know
cringe.
why that one.
That
I'm like,
one's not
kill
hitting.
it. It's out.
Hate.
So my first piece of advice for myself would be that you can be everything, just not at once. Because I think I've always had these amazing ideas for what I could do in my life, and they're all so different, which one would think I'm so talented, but no, I think there would be so many possibilities. And that actually reminds me of the book Midnight Library by Matt Haig.
Oh, I loved that. You recommended that book.
It's
That's
so
one of my favorite
deep.
books I've ever read.
But it just resonated with me so much because I think for my whole life, I think so much about the opportunity cost of the things I'm not doing. So, right now in life, I am so content with where I'm at, what I'm doing. I have no doubts about it. But I'm like, or I could be a trad wife in New Zealand. Or I could be, if I had just worked a little better at soccer, I could be in the fucking champion. Like, I just dwindle so much on the things I could have done or could have been. I do believe that you can be everything you want to be, just not at once. So I don't think it's ever too late to start something. I don't think it's ever too silly to start something. I think I've learned, how young we really are. So one thing to think about at 20 is like, okay, look, you can do so many things. Just really map out your life and think about when you want to do those things and think about when it's better to do those things depending on how old you are. And I think I think a lot about that as it relates to motherhood, right? Because especially for women, it's like, okay, if I ever want to be a mother, do I do it when I'm young and could be traveling, or do I do it later on? So yeah, I think you can do everything, you can be everything, just not at once.
I love that you brought up motherhood because that would be kind of like my second piece. So because I have always been so goal oriented, I have always had like a very, very linear line on having my career and being successful, and then how that relates to making investments, being able to buy a house, having a 401k. What does my savings look like? And I think motherhood for me was not on the radar at that time because I've been so hyper focused. And I think our culture, at least for me as a millennial, really, really, really was like, be a girl boss, be a bad bitch, like you can do it all. And I think now for me, I can't wait to be a mom. I have crazy baby fever. I cannot wait to be someone's partner and like take care of a home and have that time.
Bake.
And so I think for me, looking back, I'm like, I wish that maybe I'd been a little bit more open to leaning into just kind of like that part of my life, even if I wasn't ready for it. But I think just allowing that narrative to be there, because for me, I've always been like, oh, I'm like, need to be this boss bitch. And now I'm like, no, I think I am so excited for like this other part.
I think with feminism, we're getting deep here, but I think with feminism, we've overcompensated, right? I think for so long, and rightly so, women had to fight to be independent, to be self-sufficient as it relates to earning money, that we've gone so far to the point where women are having less and less kids because they're putting their career first, not finding partners, not having kids at the right time, and then it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And we've overcompensated. And this is coming from me, super liberal. I'm gay. I don't know if I even want kids, but I truly think women have overcompensated, and it's okay to kind of, lean into. And maybe this is why like the trad wife movement is really popular, because I think women are like, it's okay to be both. And I think the important message is we should have the option and the right to be whichever one of those identities that you want to be.
I think just my advice for a 20-something is just stay open and do not just put one lens on and not experience all these other like beautiful facets that as a woman are an option.
Right.
And you can always change your mind.
And also it doesn't help that society doesn't view motherhood as like this first class citizen job, right? Society really advantages having a career and all of that, but actually being a mother is undoubtedly the hardest job, even though I've never been one. And I think society needs to do a better job. And I think that obviously comes with legislation and comes with all the politics stuff about, you know, how can we, you know, make sure mothers are looked after and make sure that they feel empowered to want to be mums. Because I think also that's the problem. Like, women are just also having less kids because they don't feel empowered to be mothers, you know?
I am so excited to be a mom. And my mom did not work. And I remember when I was a kid with all my little jobs, I'm like, my mom doesn't work. And now I'm like, how lucky and blessed am I that I got to have a mom that was with me every day.
Right.
And I think it's just something to think about for like your 20-year-old self, just as a woman specifically. But I think that also another thing for me is you can course correct and change your life at literally
Any stage.
any moment. You can wake up tomorrow and do something completely different, be anything you want to be. And I only realized this very recently, where I felt like I have to do this. This is the path. You need to act this way.
Right.
And then all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, as an individual, you can literally be anybody you want to be.
And you can restart at any age. I mean, we have friends who are in late 30s, 40s, going through divorces, thinking about having kids. I mean, my mum, granted, she had me very young, but then she had my brother at 42. I've just had a friend who had her first kid at 45 and it was unplanned. So we really need to remind ourselves and our 20-year-old selves that 30, 40, even 50s, 60s is still so young.
I have a guy friend and he is a lawyer, and we got dinner the other week and he said, when I was little, all I wanted to do was like, I mean, I guess little meaning like in his teens and young 20s, he wanted to be a sommelier and like have like a wine and cheese shop. And he said, I just think I'm too old now, and my family and their expectation is that I'm a lawyer. And he's like, if I could think of like my perfect happiness, it would basically be like pursuing this route. And it made me feel really emotional because I just thought, wow, your family, you've put that boundary on yourself. You are a 50+ man. You can do whatever you want, and I'd hope your family would just be happy for you. But like, I think sometimes the expectations of others can really craft our life path.
100%. You've said it beautifully. I've been lucky in that I would give myself that advice, but I also feel I've had really good role models in my life that have shown me that. My grandmother is currently 92, and she has always lived life like a 30-year-old. She did a study abroad program in France, in Grenoble, in her 70s, and she was in dorms with 20 something. Cool. Yeah, and so I've had
that is so sick.
Right, and I've had good role models to show me that, but I think that, you know, thinking that and having that as an idea is one thing, and actually doing it and actually using those principles to guide your life is another thing. And being brave enough to restart, being brave enough to know that love is out there at any age, being brave enough to know that as a woman you can still have kids way into your 40s, and I've been reading even 50s now. So just really remembering that for the rest of your life. I will say one thing you said in the beginning is that you've been always very goal oriented. I'm the opposite. I've always been so shit with goals. I've never written New Year's resolutions. I don't know what my problem is. I just really struggle with goals. I've always been quite like, I'm an optimistic person, but I've been pessimistic about like, will I be alive if I make these goals? Or like, if I don't achieve these goals, then what's the point? So I've just like never made them. With that in mind, what I've always done is live with principles over plans, which means I don't like making plans so far ahead in advance because I feel this pressure to make them come true. But I live with principles, meaning, you know, I'm always going to be creative. So at any point I can start a podcast or take photos, or, you know, I'm going to live with integrity and not lie, which means that any endeavor that I go into, I know it will come from a place of integrity. So I always like to think about what principles I can guide my life by instead of making all these plans.
Yeah. I have always just been very pragmatic. I'd say 90% pragmatic. But then because of having this kind of goal-oriented, very structured life, the other 10%, I will go off the rails and be like very off the rails, making like not great decisions. And I think that's almost sometimes I've thought, is this like a form of self-sabotage?
Interesting.
Because I live this structure and then sometimes I need to just like let it rip. And then I'll make these decisions and sometimes friends will be like, oh, it's a little bit crazy. Like you're doing that. And so something I've really leaned into recently is just like even with plans or with travel, like it's okay to go out on a Thursday and be tired at work on Friday. Or like I booked this trip to Miami recently and I took 2 days off work and nobody fucking cared. And I was like, why am I not traveling more on weekends? But I like put this boundary, like God forbid the flight is delayed and then I'm exhausted. And that to me is something that I'm so happy that I'm working on because already it makes me feel like more free.
Yeah, I'm so the opposite. Like, my friends would not be surprised at any given moment with anything I'm doing. Like, next week, I could be going to Mars on SpaceX, and they'd be like, well, that makes sense. So we are just so different in so many ways that I love. With that said, though, something I am quite similar in is that I do like to, or I would tell my 20-year-old self to lead with action, meaning if you want to do something, it has to start with action. Like you have to do it. You can't be thinking about doing something and then thinking that you're doing enough by thinking about it. You have to take action.
Hate when people talk about things and they do not make action or take action. It is one of my pet peeves. It's actually like if I had a pet peeve list or like an ick list, nothing grinds my gears more than someone constantly talking about something and making no effort to do it.
Yeah, because an idea is just an idea until it's something tangible, until it's something you can smell, you can touch, you can feel. And sometimes we think about something for so long and so much that we trick ourselves into thinking that we're doing that thing. And it's like, no, sweetheart, you've done nothing.
Yes.
You need to go out there and just start. And you might feel like you're not good enough to do it. You might feel like you don't know what you're doing, but you have to start.
Yeah. I think it's also almost like a dreamer mentality, but dreamer with action, because I think I've never felt like, oh, I couldn't do that. Mm-hmm. And even with work, like I obviously have like a ton of other like side hustles, and then I have my own life, and then I have my full-time job. And to me, it's because I'm like, there is nothing that I think that I cannot reach. That probably goes back to how I was raised, because my parents were like, you can do anything. But I think we are both similar in that way, where we're like, okay, if we want to do this, how do we get there? Like if it's travel and you're like, I have this bucket list and I want to go, how am I going to make it happen? You know?
Well, and also to the point of having supportive parents, that helps a lot if you're in your 20s. And really just thinking about 20s as the decade to experiment with everything. Yeah. You don't need to have it figured out. Experiment with who you are, who you love, what jobs you want to do. Say yes. One thing I would say to myself that, I mean, I think I did this pretty well, but just to keep doing it, is say yes to everything. I was such a yes person in my 20s, and now I'm actually only at the point where I'm learning to say no, and the things that I say no to now matter more than the things that I say yes to. But actually saying yes for a whole decade has led me to these situations that I'm in now that I love and that I'm so fortunate to live, that, you know, I will always recommend young people just being a yes person.
I also would say with dating, date so many different people. Yes. I love that I have dated so many different kinds of men. Yeah. And for me, I am so grateful for all of the experiences, maybe not for a few, but I am so happy that I have gotten to, you know, be with like very introverted people, be with people who are engineers. I dated a brain surgeon. I dated a trust fund kid. Like I don't think those are great examples that I've just said. I'm
like, how did the trust fund kid turn out for you, Devon?
I sound like so cunty when I just said that. But what I meant by it is, do not be afraid to put yourself out there and go on a ton of different dates and just really get to know people, because I think you'll be surprised with who you date and who you end up with. And now in my early 30s, I am so crystal clear about who is a match for me, what the right type of partnership is, what I see as longevity. And the only reason I feel so confident in that is because I have dated so many different kinds of people.
I love that. And
you get to smooch a lot of people.
Yeah, I literally have that on my list here.
I love that.
It's number 3, have more sex, be more single. So 20-year-old self, just have more sex, safe sex, be more single. And, you know, as I've said before, I've gone from relationship to relationship. And whilst that has served me well, and I'm so happy I did those things, you really just have to get it out of your system, you know, because otherwise you might find the one and then you haven't had enough sex.
I think too, like with having different kinds of sex, it's so important because you gotta know what's out there, what works chemistry wise. You might think that something is one way and then you meet somebody and it's amazing, or it is not.
Yeah.
We also know sometimes you will have the best dick of your life and it is not your soulmate.
Yeah.
And you will miss that dick.
It's so true. And I'm sure the conservatives watching us are hating that we're like advocating for premarital sex and sex in general. But I think we have to be true to ourselves. And this is our 20-year-old selves. It's Devon and I.
Yeah, you're getting to know yourself. And sometimes you can have amazing chemistry with someone, but then they're not your partner and you move on.
Yeah.
But I think you have to experience that to know.
Well, I guess as well, though, for people, you know, we're coming from our point of view. And I think we want to reiterate that this is our thoughts and feelings. Yeah. We are both 2 gals who have sex as a really important factor in a relationship, and like, you know, chemistry, physical chemistry to other people that might not be of importance.
Yeah.
And
I think to a lot of people it doesn't matter.
Right.
Which is also totally fine. But 20-year-old Devon, like that, I am actually quite glad that I was able to date different types of people.
I'm also going to say something quite controversial.
All right.
Which is, I had very great parents who had a very neutral view of sex. And like, you know, I can't really remember talking to them about it much, but I never grew up thinking like, this is this, you know, holy thing that I have to wait for and it has to be someone special. And, you know, it kind of for me happened when I think I lost my female virginity when I was 16 and then my boy virginity when I was 18. And after I did it with both.
You lost your virginity to a girl first?
Devon, I'm gay.
But I thought you were with guys first.
Yeah, but I would do everything but. Like all the blowjobs. Well,
you've never told me that. How would I know?
How will I know? Yeah. Yeah. So once I did it with both, I was like, what's the big deal? Like, why are people like waiting their whole lives to do this? Or like, why are they waiting for like the one? And more often than not, it's not the one. And I'm not saying like it's not a special thing. Like, obviously, I just said that physical chemistry and attraction is a very special thing. But I also think that sometimes in society or in media or, you know, in people's households and parents, they might have a narrative of sex that might not corroborate with the reality of the situation, you know?
Yeah.
That was my experience. I don't want to speak for other people. I don't want to say like, go for it, have sex. It's not a big deal because, you know, it might be a big deal. But for me, I mean, at 20, I was already having sex. So this advice. But okay, if I could go back to 17-year-old Yaz, I'd say like, yeah, be safe. But it's, you know, it's okay. Like to.
Well, you're understanding your sexuality, which is a very scary thing to explore.
What's the age of consent here? Because I'm like, can 18? Yeah. Oh, so like 18-year-old Yaz, not 17. I think in the UK it's 16.
I was going to say I thought it was 16, but I could be very wrong.
I think in the UK you can start doing everything sooner, like drinking, sex.
Yeah.
It's great.
Okay, another thing that I would tell myself is...
Fuck bitches, get money.
100%. I had an LLC that was FBGM. Fuck bitches, get money.
You did?
Yeah.
And I just said that?
Yeah. FBGM.
Oh my God. Wild synchronicity.
I know, and I've never told you that. I was like, oh, reading my mind. I think I would say that this is so cheesy. And when people used to say this to me, I would eye roll and it would actually aggravate me. But now I believe it to be true. I do believe that everything will work out the way that it should. If I could go back and tell my 20-year-old self that, I would say that. because I do believe that there is a path and there is a plan, and that if you are a good person, I do think that everything will end up working out. I think that life will always have hiccups and nothing is ever perfect, but I think sometimes letting go and just like believing in the truth that what is for you will be there for you is maybe calming for me now, but I actually really believe it. I don't know
that.
if you think that's cheesy.
I am aligned because I do think everything happens for a reason. And I've been reading a lot about free will. Oh my God. I've been reading so much about free will and how it relates to actual like physics and cosmic things. And ultimately, to put in layman's terms, I do think everything happens for a reason. And I don't know what the reason is and I don't know how it happens, but I do think, you know, without getting too religious, like I do think we have our path set for us. And so I think everything works out. And if it hasn't worked out, it's not the end of it yet. And everything will work out until death. And I think, you know, I think there are so many situations where you suffer in life. And I think it might be hard to see those moments as like, oh, well, everything happens for a reason. But I think those are the moments that make you strong as a person and that you grow and that you really experience life. Because also, what is life and happiness without suffering, right?
Yes.
Like you wouldn't ever feel happy or ever, you know, take joy and really cherish the moments that you feel that gratitude and happiness without all the shit that life brings.
Yeah. I really believe that sometimes the universe or God will bring you a gift, and if you are not ready to receive it, you miss out on it. And there's like a master plan that is being orchestrated for you, and sometimes you're just not ready. And when you have had very unfortunate bumps in the road, obviously this does not go with everything because sometimes really fucking horrible shit just happens. But I think for me, when I reflect on my life, anytime that I have felt very, very down, or I've felt like, why is this happening to me? Why me? I believe that it is for a bigger purpose, and there's something better for me that's coming, and I'm experiencing it for growth. And I'm very grateful for hiccups that I've had, because it has, when I've been in them, I have felt extremely like, what the fuck? Like, I think it's easy to do comparison in those like times where you're like, well, this isn't happening to anyone else. Like, why is this always me? But I think when I am able to like come out of it and like look at those situations, I feel like it happened to me for a reason. And it could be as simple as like, maybe it happened so then we could talk about it on this podcast.
Yeah.
And somebody listening could be like, oh, I resonate with that. Like my day just perked up a little bit.
100%. And I really try to live with stoicism and be stoic in everything that I go through. And, you know, whilst it's very hard for me to talk about religion because I don't think I have really come to understand my relationship with it. I do think faith is important, and it's literally scientifically proven that people that believe in something, that people who are spiritual, people who have faith, whatever that may be, they literally go through problems better. Like they literally have more hope. They literally have more optimism. So just believing in something, and, you know, whatever that is, just having kind of faith in a bigger power than yourself. Oh my God, we're getting so deep. And I love that we got God and premarital sex in like the same 2 minutes.
That's iconic. So true. I think like optimism too is so important. That's something, because just I am so hard on myself, I would always remind myself to like just stay really optimistic, because I'd say naturally I'm like a really energized, very happy person that's like always like bringing a lot of like positivity. But I think internally I get really down on myself if things don't go like how I'd want them to go. And so I think like my stepdad does such a good job. He is so optimistic. And I'm so grateful that he came into my life, because that's something that I've like really been able to work on. And I just like with younger friends, like when they come to me for advice, like I always say, like, you have to stay positive. And I think sometimes it's annoying. And I say it's like a chipper cherry or like the positive Polly in me. And sometimes you're just like, I don't want to be positive. Like my life is fucking sucking. But if you can just look at it and be like, this is going to get better, I do think it gets better.
Yeah, no, truly. And there's always going to be someone worse off than you. Like, that's what I think. I'm like, well, this could be worse.
It's very true.
Yeah.
And like actually quite humbling.
Yeah. To that point, you also said something about, you know, people coming into your lives. One thing I would have told my 20-year-old self is just because you've had a deep emotional connection with someone doesn't mean they are going to be in your life forever. And sometimes you're like,
yes,
preach, sister.
Yes.
It's very hard to go through something with someone. And I'm not just talking about a relationship. I'm talking about, it could be anything.
Yes.
Have you read Enduring Love, the
No.
book about like a hot air balloon accident?
No.
You should read it. It's a good book. It does relate to this, I promise, but I won't spoil the book for everyone else. But it could be any situation that you go through with someone and you think, because of how deep that was, that person is inherently going to be in your life forever. Well, guess what? They might not be. And someone might know everything about you 1 year and in 2 years they might be dead, or they might not be there, or you may think you're going to have a friend for life in someone and they might not. And just having the maturity to let things go and know that it's okay for those things to go. And if it's meant to be, they will circle back into your life when the moment is right in the most beautiful way. Mm-hmm. But if it doesn't, it's okay. It's okay to have lived something with someone and then to not have that anymore.
Yeah. I think when you're young, at least I always felt like, well, what if this was fate? Or like, what if this person or this like situation was supposed to happen? And I think that can just be like naive. And I think you just, as time goes by and you have more and more experiences, you learn how important it is sometimes to just let go and to say goodbye. Whenever I've had to say goodbye to anyone, anything, or a situation, I try to be like very thoughtful, because for me, I always need some sort of closure. And so I think, why did this happen?
I mean, we still struggle with it though, right?
No,
like transparently, Devon and I talk about closure probably every week and how we are relentless with wanting closure with situations and people. And maturity is really realizing that you might not get closure, everyone.
It's a really, really big learning lesson that I actively have to practice every day, because I really, really want it. And I think just with time, I've really learned that sometimes closure doesn't happen and it's for a reason. And so you have to figure out how personally you can move on.
Yeah, love that. So I wrote down, you'll regret things you didn't do much more than regretting the things that you did do. So for me in my life, I don't know about you, but I don't have many regrets. And I think I've said this here before, but I have more regrets about things I didn't do, you know, whether that's telling people certain things or just things I should have done more. I don't think I have any big regrets about things I did do. Like, I can't think of one big regret I have.
I think I have regrets where I've handled situations poorly and I wish I could go back and do it very differently. And sometimes I think that kind of haunts me. So I'd say I have those regrets.
But I think having those are healthy, because then it course corrects and shows you like, oh, I did that once, don't want to do that again.
Yeah.
I think I am haunted by things I haven't done constantly.
There were a few moments for friends that I didn't show up for because I was in my very emotionally abusive relationship. And at that time in my life, I could barely get out of bed, let alone like go to a wedding. And I missed some really important life experiences or life moments for wonderful people in my life based on like something selfishly that was going on. And when I look back, I am really regretful that I was like not able to be there for those people, because those people have been there for me. I
once did something to do with friends where I like missed out on part of a trip with friends because I was so in love with a boy, and like I literally left the trip to go to a dinner with a boy.
But I think that's just life though.
I know, it's like, not a huge I don't lose sleep over that, but it just reminded me of I truly don't think I have regrets. I think I just regret things I didn't do or things I should have done more of, or and to that point, one thing I wrote down here is just journaling more or doing more diary entries or just writing everything down, even if it's as silly as like a dream diary.
Yeah.
Sometimes I want to remember crazy dreams I've had where I'm like,
I love that.
Yeah. And then, you know, I know that that's something I should have done, or if I would tell my 20-year-old self, do this, I could start now and I'm still not fucking doing it.
Yeah.
It's a lot of effort.
really, really want to get... I used to be so good about journaling. And then I think sometimes if you put too much pressure on it, like some mornings I just be like, I literally do not have anything to say. And so then I kind of fell out of it. But that's something this year I started doing again. And some days, and I actually like physically write it.
She
not in
is
notes.
a bitch. That's how I imagine you journaling. Yes. Or like, he is an idiot. Not good boy. That's what I imagine. Oh, wait.
Oh no.
We have a screenshot.
Oh my gosh.
Of when you did journal, when you were in your bad relationship.
Yes.
You wrote an email to yourself.
Yes, I used to email myself.
We will use that to tease this episode. But it is incredible.
It is wild because exactly what I said to myself is all true and what ended up happening. And I think it goes back to like trusting your intuition. And I have a very strong intuition. I also know female intuition is like out of control. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I think intuition and anxiety can get confused.
Yes, and I was about to say,
like, anxious about something and then I'll mistake it for intuition and then I'll get in my head. So I think kind of figuring out where you are with like your anxiousness and being able to segment intuition versus anxiety.
Is this your trauma or is it your gut?
Yeah.
So I agree with you because there has been times in my life in my 20s where I've had intuitions or I've had gut instincts about something and I ignore them.
Yes.
And then I'm so glad that I did ignore them because I'm like, oh my God, that wasn't my gut. It was like my trauma response to something saying don't, or like this is unsafe. And actually it was fine. And I'm like, okay, this is where my gut is playing tricks on me.
Yes.
I do still believe you should trust your intuition, but I think you need to do the work. First, you need to do the work of unlearning and unpacking trauma responses and triggers and anxious attachment styles to then figure out, is this my intuition or is this a trauma response? It's fucking hard. I mean, to this day, I could tell my 20-year-old self, like, trust your gut. Yeah. I don't fucking know where my gut is, what my gut is saying, like, what's my head, what's my heart, what's my... I don't have a clue, but I have gone through enough situations where I'm like, interesting. Like, I think that was more trauma than intuition.
Right. I do this silly little thing that seems to help. When I have a big decision, I will go to bed and then right before I get in bed, I say to myself like what it would be. So for example, like if it was a new job, it'd be like, tomorrow I'm going to quit this job and I am going to start this new job. And I set that in my head as fact and my action. And then I go to sleep. And if I am tossing and turning all night and not able to sleep, I revisit the decision. If I'm able to have a great night's rest and fall asleep, I know that it is right.
That is such good advice. And I would have put that on my list, is like thinking over things, breathing, thinking decisions, big decisions that you want to make for days instead of in the moment. I think we're both very impulsive people.
Yeah, they're being reactive.
So reactive. I'm like a fucking firework.
I've really, really worked on being less reactive.
Yes. And the thing that has led me to do work on being reactive and impulsive is every time I would get into arguments with partners, I would break up with them. Every single argument, I'm like, we're done. Yeah. This is done. Bye-bye. And they're like, you can't keep breaking up with me and then coming back in the room half an hour later being like, jokes, like, I love you.
Yeah.
So that led me to be like, oh my God, like, this is so fucked up. I don't want to break up with these people every week, every time we have an argument. Why am I like that? And it's just, I'm impulsive, I'm reactive. I don't think over my emotions and decisions and thoughts and like, what do I actually want or feel about the situation? So I wonder if meditation and mindfulness and those practices that we don't do, if that's all to help.
Yeah. I think like, because for our work we move 100 miles like a minute, like we are like go and process, like just like checking things off the list, getting things done. Like, I hate to say mover and shaker, but it's like when your brain is
We move
like that, and
fast.
because we both move very
So
with
fast.
work,
Yeah.
which is a blessing and a curse, because for me, that is why I'm reactive, because I think like I don't allow enough time to like really think something over, which I've learned now in all aspects of my life, which is fucking hard as fuck, is sometimes I like do like go on a walk, or I'll just put my phone down, or I will like write it out. I know this is like so girl coded, but like write it out in my notes.
Yeah,
and then I
same.
think about sending it. And even something at work, sometimes I'll get an email and I will write out how like the old Devon would respond. And then I'm like, no, why would I write that?
Yeah.
You know, or like even like a text. Like I think sometimes we write these things like so quickly and then they're just in the universe.
Well,
and
sometimes
you can't take it back.
You also send me texts you want to send to someone, and I'm like, Dev, I like literally pull you
Yes.
off the cliff. I'm like,
Yes.
do not send that
this.
because you sound insane.
Yes.
Like, let's take a breather.
Yes.
Do not send that.
And whenever you've said that and I do take a breather, I've never once regretted it and wished I had sent it.
Yeah, and you can always send a text after the
Yes.
fact. To move on to a more superficial one,
Yes.
less deep. I just wish I had started investing earlier at 20. Oh my God, if I had started investing and saving at 20,
Yeah.
I probably would still be poor. But I would have like little more compounded money.
Yeah.
I will say though, it's never too late.
Yeah.
Read the books. There is so much financial literacy out there now with TikTok. So many books I'd recommend, like Rich Dad, Poor Dad to my 20-year-old self. Just financial literacy. I think my mom has always tried to teach me things, but it's again, like it's hard for her to teach things when she does like things wrong herself. So she's like, do as I say, not as I do, but
Yeah.
inherently like you're gonna just do. But actually she's actually very good with money. But yeah, just having more financial literacy and saving and investing,
Yeah.
even if it's literally like $50 a month or $100 a month, $10 a month, just making that into a habit,
Yeah.
so that when you're 30, that habit you can do to like a bigger scale of more money.
Yeah. Well, being an advocate for yourself and taking time to educate yourself. Because
Yes.
to your point, there are so many tangible resources that do not, I think it can feel scary. And like there's so many resources that break it down and really like quite simplify it. But yeah, I think that's great advice. I feel like I had like a few people in my life when I was younger that really helped me like make smart investments. And I'm really grateful for that.
Mhm.
But I do think it can feel very overwhelming if you get older and you haven't done it. And to your point, like the
Never
first
late.
step, yeah, I think being an advocate for yourself financially is extremely important.
Mhm, especially as a woman. And it all comes down to, with the investing thing, it all comes down to habits, forming habits. And that's another thing I would have told myself is when it comes to investing and saving and fucking working out. Like I am the worst at going out and exercising at the gym. Just creating healthy habits that you do every single day.
Yeah. Routine.
Routine, discipline, and just keeping those for years and years and years, to the point that then you wake up and you don't notice them as a chore, right?
Yeah.
I think for me, the hardest one to do through my 20s was just working out. I hate the gym. To this day, I mean, developing a weekly workout routine where, you know, if I'm going to spin or Pilates or just a gym, like it's a chore, it's horrible. And I just know that if I had done it from 20 years old religiously every single
Would feel
day.
ingrained. I think I definitely go through phases. I just feel like flipping the culture of like working out as like punishing your body and instead just doing movement because it's for you,
Yeah.
whatever that is. I think that's how I stay in a routine.
You're very good. You're very disciplined and you work out every day.
I just do that because for me, if I do, like just for my mental health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas it stresses me out.
Yeah. You just have to find something. I think the hardest part, because so many people are intimidated by it, is like finding what works for you.
I do love things. Like I love spinning. I love, what do you call Pilates. I love sports more than anything.
Yeah.
Like I wish I could just do like a sports team every week, but then I can't because I'm in
Would
different.
be so great.
But
You
I'm in
used to do
different-
an intramural sport. I thought
I did, but like I'm in different states every
Yeah.
week, and it's hard to keep a routine. You know, someone once said to me what I need to do, because if my routine is not consistent and I'm
Yeah.
always in different places, I need to learn how to run, how to be a runner, because running is something you can do anywhere.
Yeah.
I cannot
And
run.
there's run clubs now too.
But I can't run. I don't know how to
do not
run.
enjoy running. My boobs are too big. I think it's
Yeah,
the boobs
my
thing.
boobs are definitely
It's like
big.
uncomfortable for
Like
me.
they hurt, and actually I want to get a breast reduction so I can run. But like I would
Just so you can run.
but I want to tell my 20-year-old
Yeah.
self, learn to run, bitch. Run.
I have a funny story about spin. So I got a Peloton during COVID. I used to love like Soul Cycle, and I think I just liked it because of like the music and like you dance on the bike. And so I got a Peloton, and I gained so much weight in like 2 weeks because I think spin's like really
I love
bad for my
spin.
body. Like I think I bulk up like quite fast because, you know, different types of movement are good for different
Yeah.
bodies. So spin is just not my friend. So I was like, oh, fuck no. I'm not going to be like all bulked up like this. Like I just did not like how I looked. So by the time I wanted to like return the Peloton, it was outside of like the customer service.
Oh no, so
parameters.
you had a Peloton.
Oh no, I like called customer service and I was like,
It's
I am
making
getting
me fat.
uglier by the day. I was like, I am so ugly right now. This is not gonna work. And my roommate at the time was like dying. She's like, oh my God, are you really gonna convince them to take it back? And then they came and they
You're like,
because I think they just
yeah,
felt so bad.
they did
for
not
me.
want your review online.
Well, I think I said I'm gonna leave a review.
Like, this is making me fat.
Ugly.
Well, here we
I was
go.
just goofy.
But here's the thing, I know that if I'm 40 and someone asks me what would you tell your 30-year-old self, is like learn to run or like exercise more and create healthy habits. So I know I can address those things now, and now that I'm hit 30, I just
Yeah.
have to be disciplined with it.
I do really want to get into meditation. It's very hard for me to
I don't know
sit
how to do
still.
it.
I am like cannot. Like I
I
had
can't do
meetings the
it.
other day in work, and I didn't realize at the office how much I'm walking around. Like it's quite hard for me to sit still.
I cannot
but
meditate.
I do think that could be a fun goal for us.
Maybe we can get a meditation practitioner as a podcast
to lead
episode.
us through a guided
Although that
meditation.
might be a bit
We will be-
boring.
Yeah, that would be so boring. B, we'll just be cracking up. The
We will
whole
be
time. Like I
laughing.
couldn't look at you when I do workout classes with friends. Like we don't like usually go next to each other. 'Cause,
like naughty school kids.
Yeah, we'll like be cracking up in the mirror.
I love that. So the last point that I want to make before we wrap this up,
We say bye bye.
we say bye-bye, is I think it's actually one of the most important advice. Is advice plural?
No, it's just advice.
It's just a noun, right? Yeah. I think we're delirious. So it's just to live with integrity and not lie. I think in my 20s, there was a few white lies here and there. And now I'm just like, why? Like, why are we lying about this for? Like,
I think lying is based off of fear and wanting to fit in.
yes.
Not all. That I take that back. That is a nuanced statement. But I think generally when I have lied in my life, it was to fit in with someone or to not hurt someone's feelings.
And I do believe, and again, another controversial opinion that I'm going to throw out there, I do think some truths are worth lying for.
Wow. Unpack that.
But
Okay.
there's always a but. I don't think it's good. I think that we should live with integrity. And I think, you know, in your 20s, sometimes it's easy to white lie and just tell people what they want to hear.
Yeah.
And the quicker you can stop lying and just living with truth,
Yes.
the quicker you will find enlightenment.
I love that. We got to do our questions.
Oh my God.
I know.
I do have one for you.
Okay.
So,
Tell me.
given all the advice you would give to your 20-year-old self,
Yes.
what is one thing you think you got right as, you know, between 20 to 30?
I think I lived my life so passionately with like a really, really open heart. And I was extremely trusting and I would never take that back.
You are, and you still are, like, and that's why people love you, BTW.
Because I think I have lived with such an open heart, and that's something that I don't want to change.
I love that.
My question to you, so thinking back to your 20s and your advice, what is something in this moment today that would be something you would tell yourself that you want to actively work on for the next 10 years?
Run.
Besides run.
I just want to know how to work out and meditate. No, I do think so, because I and here's why. It may sound silly, but now I'm at the point in life where I kind of need to really just work on the easy things, the things that to some people come naturally and to me it don't. I think I've spent so much time with the deep work, with the, just thinking about unpacking things, the trauma, that now I'm like, okay, just go back to square one of things you learn when you're younger, like start investing, start working out. And I think that there are things that I did right, like in my 20s, that I still want to work at doing, because they take effort every day, which is not tying your self-worth to productivity or to your career. I think I did do that very right in my 20s, but you have to work at it. Like, you don't just wake up and think, I'm an amazing person despite of what I do today. And, you don't wake up and think, it doesn't matter how much work I do today. Like, I am loved and the universe loves me and everything will be okay. But just having self-worth that isn't tied to anything external. And I think I'm okay at doing that, but I want to continue working on it and being better and better. And then learning how to run and meditating.
Love. Well, let's go on a run.
Now?
No, but one thing I was going to say is, like, sometimes I do think it can be that simple. And we, like, just in general overthink things, like, to, like, what is this big goal? And, like, what is this big pressure? So I love that the goal is simple, and it is to run. And I'm going to get the cutest running outfit.
Thank you.
And
if anyone wants to sponsor us to run, we are taking sponsors.
Love you so much.
Love you. Well, episode 4. Bye.